The prison experience for me turns out to be beneficial. I spent all my time being busy. I was never really bored. I made sure I had a routine no matter what prison I was in. I was in 6 prisons over a period of 4.5 years. And I read extensively, read a book every day, had 25 magazine subscriptions, kept in touch with Canada through Maclean's magazine and all the new books that were coming out about Stephen Harper. I read them. I had a subscription to New York Times, and I became a musician and learned to play the bass guitar. And I know 120 rock and roll songs, and I was in an outstanding rock and roll band that I was honored to be with. So inmates treated me great. Guards were professional to me. I don't have any circumstances of trauma or violence that I experienced personally. And because I was treated as a celebrity to some degree, everybody was particularly polite. Since 1969, we've had this prohibition of marijuana in Canada, and 2 million Canadians have been arrested and had their lives disrupted, and they've been jousted about by police officers, and hundreds of thousands of those people went to jail, and many had their homes invaded during raids for growing marijuana. You know, their pets could have been killed. We've had billions of dollars spent on this futile prohibition, and there's no benefit to the Canadian public. We have nothing good to show for it, and an endless stream of bad things to show for it.
It is true that in the past, parties have promised to legalize, decriminalize here in Canada, and it never happened. And I would say even 2 years ago, the idea of the Liberal Party supporting legalization and following through was brand new and still kind of uncomfortable. Right now, it's not just popular amongst the people, there's political pressure. We have government officials at every level of government in America talking about legalizing marijuana. Here in Canada, it's a deafening silence in every level of government. Even brave, forward politicians like Libby Davies of the NDP, who has been fantastic, she said not a thing. Justin Trudeau, after years of looking at this and even voting for mandatory minimums and changing his mind through education, I believe he will stick with it because the climate has changed around the world.
Oh, I'm delighted we see this kind of change happening. In fact, Oregon, Alaska, and Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States, will be voting to legalize marijuana in November to join Colorado and Washington and Uruguay as a country in South America. Canada's fallen a bit behind, but not really. The license providers development is a great thing because those people are making a lot more marijuana. And we're winning the fight if we're producing more marijuana.
When it comes to marijuana propaganda from the government, it's all lies and it's all hysteria. And when you have young people who might struggle with marijuana, although I don't find that very often, if they do struggle with it, handcuffs will not help them. Prohibition does not make pot any safer for young people. And the idea that Justin Trudeau is trying to put big joints in the mouths of kids is not just offensive, it's an outright lie. Teenagers get marijuana far more easily than they get alcohol or tobacco because drug dealers don't ask for ID. And even worse, as Marc has often pointed out, young people become recruited into gangs and start selling marijuana because of prohibition, not because some little plant got in their head and told them to be bad. We do know Canadians typically say marijuana is not a top issue when it comes to voting and elections. They say that the economy and jobs is number one, and healthcare, education. Well, those are all tied to marijuana legalization. Millions and millions of tax dollars every year are spent arresting people, sending them to court, even if they don't go to prison. Those millions of dollars are not going to hospitals. They're not going towards schools. They're not going towards helping with the elderly population. We need a lot of tax dollars for a lot of things in this country. Marijuana prohibition is not one of them.
In Colorado, the money that they collect in taxes is going to schools and hospitals. That's going to become a more and more vital need for all governments. And that's why in the United States, other state senators and state representatives are going to Colorado, seeing what's happening, noticing that everybody approves of it. And that's going to happen. You're going to get people wanting to move to those jurisdictions to be part of this radical change that's happening all across North America.
Canada has been under this unjust government for many years now. And when it comes to getting rid of bad, unjust government, you've only got 2 ways to do it. Violent revolution, which is I don't want to do anything with that, or through election day in the ballot box. That's the only time Canadians get to change their government. I'd be happy to continue campaigning to unseat the Harper government, not just for the harm that they've done to our marijuana movement, but to the harm of this whole country and for the families who are going to suffer under pot prohibition the way I had to suffer all those years. I want this Harper government out for so many different reasons, and the only way to get rid of an unjust government peacefully is through Election Day.